Ayong hapon. Welcome to Ilumoka collaboration with the Art Response Project. This is our last live stream for this month. We would like to thank those who joined us in the two previous live streams. We hope that the topics we discussed will be beneficial to the artists and their practice. The topics we discussed this month were conceived by creative powerhouses Richard Bokshani and Riel Hilario. Today's topic will focus on niche art spaces. We are joined by artist Riel Hilario. So if you have questions for him regarding the topic that he will discuss today, you can post your questions on the comment section. So we posted the question earlier for artists, would you rather be commercially or critically successful? So we will see what most of you said later, but let's also see if this talk can give you pointers on how to achieve your goals in your art practice. So I think we are ready to meet our guest. Our guest is Riel Hilario. Riel Hilario is a conceptual artist, designer, painter, sculptor, art historian, and independent curator. He studied at the Philippine High School for the Arts. He then took up art history at the University of the Philippines College of Fine Arts in Diliman. He is a recipient of the CCP 13 Artist Award in 2012. He subsequently received numerous awards, including Ateneo Art Awards, Philippine Art Awards, among others. Riel also had residencies in Paris, New York, Seoul, Penang, Bacolod, and Gwangju. His works were collected by Gwangju Arts Center, Seoul Museum of Art, Tinto Art Museum, Balay Segundo, Gallery DRC, and Iloilo Museum of Contemporary Art. He's had 5 major solo exhibitions from 2012 to 2018 in the Philippines, Paris, New York, and Singapore. Artists, friends, let's all welcome Riel to the show.
Hi, sorry. Hello, thanks. Good afternoon. My talk today is a culmination of something that Richard Bokshani and I started way back in September, called the Art Response Project. The Art Response Project is an artist initiative. It's an independent initiative by artists to help other artists in concerns about their own practice. Ginawa namin ni Richard to para matulungan yung ibang artists na maintindihan kung ano yung ba yung different aspects of their practice. So today I'm talking about niche art space. Niche art space is it's a theoretical or conceptual event. It's actually an object of conceptual art. It's a mental object. It makes your studio run like an art space. So there's a paradigm shift of your practice. Kasi the question earlier kanina was, ano, di ba? Would you rather be commercially or critically successful? In the Philippines, there seems to be a mutually exclusive condition. That's often those who are commercially successful are not critically successful. Meaning, hindi sila sikat pero mayaman. Mabenta artworks. Yung hindi naman mabenta artworks, minsan sila pa yung sikat. There seems to be an imbalance, and yet there was a time when nagkakaroon ng konting professional jealousy between the two groups. The critically successful artists, meaning ito yung mga artists who push the boundaries of art making, its practices and its materials. They look down upon commercial artists and simply tell, commercial lang kayo. In the same token naman, commercially successful artists look also differently at critically successful artists and saying, hindi lang kayo marunong kasi lumaro ng game. My practice as an independent curator for 30 years and as an artist helped me bridge the two concerns. In fact, in my younger years as a young artist, I was asked by my curator, the late Bobby Valenzuela, would you rather be commercially or critically successful? And I was telling him, why not both? Kasi my paradigm is, and I told this to my mentees way back in the early 2000s, the myth of the suffering artist, the myth of the artist who's poor and struggling is already dead. In fact, si Van Gogh, patay na. Let's bury him na. And let's arm ourselves with proper knowledge in basic financial planning and basic business modeling. Uh, so we can gain a foothold in our practice as a means of livelihood. Hindi masama na gawing livelihood ang art. Lalo na ngayon, the market is good. Despite the pandemic, the market has been very robust worldwide. This is due to the fact that nagbago na ang landscape ng art making at presentation ng art. It used to be in the previous years, past 20 years or so, art was an events based activity, meaning people go to exhibitions, art fairs, biennales as events, and that's the place where art is exchanged in those events. The pandemic brought us a different paradigm in which artists now advertise their works online, and platforms like Artsy, Artnet, mga ganyan, and real personal websites and social media became the galleries, became the conduit, became the channels by which your art is available. So let's begin with my lecture. Next slide, please. Yung tinuturo ko na niche art space is at a part of a larger art education program called the 9 segments of contemporary art practice. Mali spelling ng slide ko. Pero anyway, it takes into consideration the 3 elements of the contemporary practice: studio, artist, and market, with the aim of fulfilling 3 art goals: sustainability, sovereignty, and equitability. Just very brief. Sovereignty is basically the state where the artist has complete creative control over his practice. Walang nagsasabi sa artist kung sino, kung ano ang kailangan niyang gawin, at paano niya gagawin, and when. I believe that this is the role of the artist. I mean, this is the ideal setup for the artist. The artist is king, is sovereign over his production. Unfortunately, in a market-driven art scene like arts, oftentimes yung needs ng artist nagiging secondary lang to sa demand ng market. I still believe that we can still achieve sovereignty. Iti-tweak lang natin yung attitudes ng artist doon sa market, and the market to the artist likewise. Sustainability of practice refers to yung ginagawang art ng isang tao, his practice, sustains his life and his practice. Ito yung state kung saan hindi ka kailangan mamalimos o hindi mo kailangan maghanap ng ibang sources of income para lang masustain ang iyong work. Actually, worldwide, if you don't know this, and I realized this when I was in Amsterdam in 2016, the Philippines is one of the very few countries where artists can make a living out of art. Everywhere in the world, artists have day jobs and they just do their art after. It's only when they achieve a certain market segment or market niche, which we will talk about today, do they leave their day jobs. So kung ikaw ay isang struggling artist right now, young artist, and you have a day job, huwag kang mahiya. 80% of the world artists do that. They have, you have 2 feet on 2 financial instruments. So, and lastly, equitability refers to the state where yung needs ng isang artist, yung cost ng kanyang buhay, cost ng kanyang learning, is given its proper value by the art market. In recent years, the past 10 years or so, the art market has become more and more speculative. Meaning, unlike before where ang value ng artist nagiging directly related doon sa value, sa tagal niya, sa seniority niya. Because of attitudes towards contemporary art and the art market noong mga mid-2000s, nag-shift yung focus ng market sa young artists. Para naging futures market ang young artist. Kasi ang art over time, it increases in value. It accrues value. Unfortunately, my senior artists, they only work on smaller quantities. Speculative buying in the early 2000s made sure that they buy young artist works. And then they just sit on the artist's works until these young artists become senior. So that created a whole difference in the art market buying because it's speculative. Number one, no one knows really if the young artist will continue. Baka mamatay yan by his 30s. No one knows. It's all speculative. But in the meantime, the problem is there's a glut in the mid-career and senior artist market. And I'm sure everyone who is in mid-career and young senior ngayon will agree with me that there seems to be an unfair valuation of their work in the art market today, not just in the Philippines, but worldwide, because of the speculative attitude of the contemporary art market. That being said, I'm offering this education system, this whole 9 segments of contemporary art practice in a private consultation capacity. So today, I'll discuss niche marketing. Next slide. So this is just a representation of, yan, parang sabi nung kaibigan pitchfork daw from, but it represents the 9 steps in creating your niche. A niche is basically, it comes from the word niche. Alam mo yung nicho? It's a place where one artwork, a sculpture actually, is placed. It's a cut in a wall and ikaw lang ang pwede doon. Sa industriya, ang niche ay isang state kung saan ikaw lang ang nandoon sa era na yon at wala nang iba. At kung meron man kasama ka, ikaw yung the best doon sa niche na yun. Early on in my career as a wood carver, I realized that I have to create a niche for myself kasi kung magpipinta lang ako, who am I to be who am I as an artist alongside other artists? Ito rin yung naging inisip ni Guillermo Tolentino when he was working alongside his friend Fernando Barcelo. Guillermo Tolentino is a great painter. Magaling siya mag-drawing. But nung makita niya yung best friend niya, si Barcelo, with 9 children and a lot of responsibilities, he realized that he can create his own niche by becoming a sculptor and a sculptor of monuments. So hence he created his own niche as a sculptor. Taking inspiration from that, I realized that I can do so, create my own niche, by examining the field. And I saw that no one was doing wood carving. And fortunately for me, I have a heritage of wood carving in my family sa Ilocos. So I applied that to myself, trained myself to be a wood carver, and created my own niche in the contemporary art market. To this day, I'm not the only wood carver in the Philippines. No, that's so weird if I am. But in the contemporary art scene, in the contemporary art practice, I'm the only one who combines conceptual art and wood carving craft in my practice. This is why my work is different, highly different from all other wood carvers and from all other conceptual artists. In my work, I have created a synthesis between conceptual and craft. So that's my example of creating a niche for myself. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. So in creating a niche market for yourself, like what I did, you have to consider three main elements. One is how to create your brand. Two, how to create products from that brand. And three, how to address a market using that brand and your products. Next slide. So a brand is, in layman's terms, artist, your identity or your signature. Yan yung kapag nakitang, example, Ben Cab's signature is very, very unique. And he is considered a brand. Kasi yung kanyang brushwork, yung kanyang drawings, yung kanyang kulay, that's his identity. When you consider yourself, when you're going to compete in the market, and you want to stand up, you don't look for identity. No. In one session with one of my mentees, he asked me, how do I create identity or my unique style? Ang sabi ko sa kanya, alam mo ba yung word na style kasi, yung idea ng style, 20th century pa yan. 21st century na tayo. What you're trying to look for is not style, but a breakthrough identity. Meaning, you can have many styles. Art is free. You can explore many styles, but you have to look for a style or a way of work na unique and can break through the market. And that is not just by not by self-expression alone. Anyone can do self-expression, but what you need to do is to examine your competition. Examine the market. Sabihin, do research. Look at your market. Look at your contemporaries and see, ano ka ba? Ano ba ang different? Pwede mo ilagay different sa laro. What you just need to do is to create nga a breakthrough brand. Excuse me. Natutunan ko yung pag-create ng brand when I was doing on-the-spot painting competitions nung early 1995 yata yun. A mentor of mine, one of the great contemporary artists, Alfredo Juan Aquinisan, told me na, alam mo Riel, madali lang yan gumawa ng manalo sa on-the-spot painting contest. Actually, kahit saan contest. I will, sir, paano? Kung 3 oras ang competition, wala kang gagawin dapat, kundi sa 2 hours mo, umikot ka lang, tingnan mo yung kalaban mo. Tapos, gawin mo in that last hour yung hindi nila ginagawa. Ang tawag doon, theme and variation. You will stand out if you're different. Kahit man, lahat ng kalaban mo ang galing, photorealist ang galing, mananalo ka. Nangyari yan sa akin sa isang on-the-spot painting competition sa UST. Alam ng mga artists noong the 90s. So lahat ng mga student artists from all over other places pumunta sa UST and did landscape painting. So I took Calisan's advice. So for 2 hours, wala akong ginawa kundi kumain ice cream at fishball. Tumikot-ikot ako doon sa buong lugar. At nakita ko na ang gagaling na mga kasama ko sa realism. Ayoko nang patulan ng gano'n. So nung bumalik ako sa aking station, gumawa ako ng Jackson Pollock na painting. You know what? I won the first prize ng year na yon. And it proves how you can create your brand by being different. So, yun yung nagiging ng identity mo. It's not by assertion of who you are, but how you create a breakthrough identity na different from the others. So, brand, meron yung tatlong elemento. unique value proposition, yung sinasabi kong what is different in your work. Unfair advantage. You are given unfair advantages, really. The universe or God has given you certain gifts that others don't have. So you should take that in consideration as well. And then finally, you have followers and ambassadors. Like any brand, like a liquor, for example, you need followers. You need people who have faith in you. When you're a struggling artist or a young artist, it's important, it is important, that you have the approval or the encouragement of a community of artists, lalo na kung senior. Kasi it's the senior artist who will validate that what you're doing is good. And you have promise. In my case, the first artist, senior artist, who told me that I'm doing something right is Jaime de Guzman. Jaime de Guzman saw my drawings in high school, the Philippine High School of the Arts, and told me, bata, meron kang future. So, hanging on that belief by Jaime de Guzman, I pursued my creativity, my creative practice, even though I did not practice it sooner. I became a curator first before I became a full-time artist. So yeah, we need followers and ambassadors. Hindi barkada lang. Kasi ang barkada mo, remember, sa Pilipinas, grabe ang talangka mentality, ha? Minsan, kung sino pa yung barkada mo, siya pa yung manghihila sa'yo. So you need a senior artist to validate your work. Okay, next slide. Now, when you have gone through the whole market, and madali lang yan right now, ha? Kasi Google mo lang ngayon kung sino yung sikat and everything. And you have established na, ito yung pwede kong gamiting brand pang breakthrough. I should be now concerned with creating products doon sa brand na yun. So, products are artworks that are embodied in a portfolio. Ang talagang ginagamit na panlaban internationally, and I can tell this because I've been exhibiting and doing residence abroad, hindi na hinahanap sa akin yung diploma ko. No, never. They never asked me where I graduated from. Never. What they do ask for is a portfolio of my body of work. Minsan pa nga, ang hinihilang nila, yung top 25 of my works. So, when I was starting as a sculptor way back in 2008, I was nominated for an award by this, I don't want to mention na yung foundation of the award. They declined to give me the award kasi they found out that I do not have 100 works in my arsenal. Although I was known as a curator, they were dismayed to find out that I only had 30 artworks. So I told them, how many works do I need to make in order to be considered a sculptor? Ang sabi na sa akin, sige, mga 300. No, 300. So I made 300 works in 2 years. Did they come back to me and give me the award? No. It just goes to show that sometimes in the Philippines, really don't use awards as a barometer for your success. Never. What you do need to focus on are yung merit awards, yung career awards. And what are career awards? These are the 13 artist awards if you're a young artist. Ang career award is a good award din kasi it honors your body of work for that year. The Asian Cultural Council Award, Grant Award, also recognizes your body of work. Alab ng Haray, I think from the NCCA, Gawad CCP for the senior artist, and of course the National Artist Award or Gamaba Award for craftsmanship. So now that you have determined your brand, you should now have a creative problem. Ano yung creative problem? Ang creative problem, ito yung bagay na gusto mong isolve yung senior art. Kasi, what distinguishes art from craft? Santi Bose explained this very clearly to Anthony Palomo, a friend of mine. And Anthony shared this, and this is correct. Ang art ay isang bagay kapag may problem solving. Kahit ano pa yan na sasabakan mo, basta may problem solving, yan ay art. In other words, creativity is not just being magaling. Creativity is not just being stand-up. Creativity is a problem-solving capacity, a problem-solving competency that all humans have, at least some people are more creative than others. And art exemplifies our desire. It's at each of a problem. How do we represent ourselves? Kasi this is an existential problem. How does consciousness? How can consciousness be aware of itself? Parang asking a question, parang, how can the eye see itself? Di ba, by reflection? Art is our most powerful reflection. That art makes us see who we are as a people, as an individual, as human beings. So essentially, you will have to look for your unique creative problem. And any creative problem begins with the word how. Like, my creative problem in my practice is, how do I make wood carving rebultos relevant to the contemporary period, the contemporary milieu? Kasi we all know that ang rebulto, mga santo, that's Spanish period. My creative problem is, how can I make it relevant? So what I did was to solve that, and that is part 2. You solve that by making artworks. You don't solve a creative problem by a statement. Kasi if you do, magkwentuhan na lang tayo. I mean, ano yan? Thesis problem yan na sinagot mo ng words. The creative solution to a creative problem is always artworks or performances or projects. Basta anything that is tangible and has aesthetic significance, that is a solution to a creative problem. So my unique solution to my unique creative problem is to create artworks that are, ang take-off point niya, rebulto, pero ang kanyang mga subject ay hindi santo, kundi mga archetypes of my dreams. Archetypes, universal archetypes. Ito yung bagay na I'm really, really frustrated. Kasi kahit ilang beses ko siyang isulat sa artist statement ko sa Pilipinas, no one gets it except for a few. Pero sa abroad, they understand this completely because they're not hooked up into the hagiography of saints, not unlike here. So I took offense one time when someone asked me na, pwede ka mag-focus na lang sa Santo Riel. Sabi ko, I never make any santo in my life. These are just, these are more universal than santos. So anyway, so after I created that, solution. So I made works. I have to consider the cost structure of my production. Kasi may cost ang pag-create ng artworks. Lalo na kung ang practice mo, painting. Ang painting, mahal pintura. Pero sa akin, being Ilocano, and Ilocanos are known for making, repot. Uh, I studied my production line and realized na kung kukuha ko ng kahoy at no cost, zero cost, and carve it, and sa una, sweldo ko lang sarili ko ng konti. Parang it's labor intensive pero it's capital, mababa ang capital ko. Ang zero value na kahoy, I can transform it into something like 50,000 in a week, and that's not bad. What happened in between the process where yung kahoy naging artwork, naging siyang source of wealth. Because artists, you have to understand this. Because of our creative practice, we are producers of wealth or creators of wealth. You have to pay respect to your practice kasi you created something that has no value or no value at all into something that has value. Lalo-lalo na sa isang market na maganda. So, considering this, you have now a more or less good idea of how to create a product line that is attuned to your unique brand. Next slide, please. Now, this is the meat of our discussion. Market and clients. You have to understand that hindi to suntok sa buwan ang pag-create ng artworks for a market. Pwede kang gumawa ng artwork, yes. At exhibit to, yes. Pero if you have an expectation in your mind that that the world will suddenly realize your genius and follow you and buy you, you are deluded. You have to put your feet on the ground and ask, to whom are you selling your creative products and how much do you expect to earn from it? Dito medyo nagkakaya ng mga artist kasi pera usapin pera, pero diba, mga tol, nagbabayad tayo ng renta. Diba? Nagbabayad tayo ng kain. Pinag-aaral tayo. So, dapat alam mo kung magkano, and this is where financial planning comes in. How much does your life cost plus your creative practice in a year? Kaya mo ba i-compute yun? I-compute mo yun. For example, ako, since I became, karoon ako ng medical issue last year, I had an accountant who's French, by the way, to help me compute my life expenses for a year. And we came up with a number. And that number is close to $500,000 a year. But because of that, alam ko yung cost na yun. I have to make my practice, my art making, equitable to my costs. And that means I have to create a revenue stream from my art that can cover that. Ngayon, ang ano ko dyan, if hindi mo pa kaya, take note, kung hindi mo pa kaya na i-transform yung art mo na to cover your cost of your expenses, hanap ka ng katuwang, a partner or a collaborator who can help you make this equitable. In my case, what I did was, since I was the sole breadwinner, I sought for support by looking for grants. The Asian Cultural Council and the Philippine Artist Residency Program in Paris not only gave me a grant to go to Paris and New York, they gave me a generous bursary. that bursary amounts to total to 2 million pesos in excess. Meaning, malaki pa yung bursary ko, yung person na nakuha ko. So, yung 2 million pesos na excess, hindi ko pinambili ng kotse o hindi ko ginamit ko to support my family, to support my practice. Eh since ang practice ko naman kahoy lang, zero ang cost, madali lang. Ang pinaka binigyan ko ng capital expenditure, yung tools ko. Kasi yung tools na pinapanday dyan sa may bandang Paite, medyo hindi na maganda ang quality. Para namatay na yata yung mga panday. So I had to buy tools from abroad, and that became my capital expenditure for my work. So now, when considering a market, you need to ask yourself, sino ba ang target customer ko? Diba? In my case, I'm a wood carver. Ang target customer ko, in a certain to be collectors na antique, pwede. People who have already collected paintings and they want others naman. Yan. And people who want to collect cultural objects from the Philippines abroad. Tinarget ko talaga yung tatlong yan. To the point na I did earn from them. So, ang tanong ko next is, paano ko mararating yung mga taong bibili ng work ko? This is what we call channels. So, dalawa yung ginamit kong strategy dyan. Residencies abroad, grants, and of course, your old-fashioned exhibition. Exhibitions here, abroad, art fairs abroad, and that's how I found my target customers. That being said, I am also careful kung sino ang bibili ng work ko. Kasi I don't want my work to be in the hands of speculators. I'm very careful with that. Kasi my work is, since it's unique, ang dali niyang i-flip. That's why when I follow the example of Ben Camp kasi chooses his collectors because he knows that it's easy to flip his works. Following his example, I also am very, very keen on knowing who my customers are. Ito yung isang post ko, isang araw called Know Your Customer or Know Your Client. Do not accept, lalo if you're working with a gallery, the reason, uy, may bayar ako ng work mo. Tapos pagtatanong mo kung sino, ako lang may kilala nun. Wait a minute, di ba? You have to understand na who collects you, who buys you, has an impact on your work, on your profession, on your practice. Kasi if your work is in the hands of a drug dealer, will you be proud of that? Well, I won't be. I will be guilty that ang perang hawak ko ay nakasira ng buhay ng maraming tao. I mean, that's my thing. That's my morality involved. That becomes very personal. So now that you know your target customer, you have your channels, and you have your revenue structure. Basically, your revenue structure is yun nga. Saan ka kumukuha ng income para tususan yung buhay mo and your practice. Next slide, please. No, next slide. Yeah. Now, any market in the world follows the law of supply and demand. Sa art, simple lang yan. You don't fulfill demand because you're not a factory. The goal of your art is to keep demand and interest in your brand, but not fulfill it. Meaning, kailangan mong you want people to expect more from you. Pero what you want people to expect from you is not more works, but more quality work. In other words, quality over quantity. In my own practice, I have a very strict number of works na nilalabas lang per year. Kaya bilang ko ang aking sculptures. It's around 505 sculptures. And I know each and every one who has them. So 505. Do I overproduce? No. Kasi I'm also aware that you can saturate a market. Yun yung problema na maraming artist na pintala ng pinta or gawa ng artwork na walang iniisip na limitado ang market. Unless, of course, you have a gallery or someone who can introduce your work to other market segments like abroad. This was the case namin when I was working with the drawing room since 2010. The drawing room provided my work a market segment outside the Philippines. In fact, June Villalon exhibited my work in London, New Delhi, in Singapore, I think in Paris, was elsewhere. So yung market ko, ng work ko, expanded. And I further added my market segment by going abroad myself. So I created networks in New York, Pennsylvania, in California, San Francisco. I also created networks in Paris. Before the pandemic hit, I was supposed to open a gallery in Paris, actually. Well, that's another story. And also a residency program in Mexico. That's another story again. Yeah, but yes, I lost a lot of investments that way. And like everyone else in the world, natalo ako ng pandemic. COVID took away a lot from me, took a lot of opportunities from me. Pero the key here is, like any good businessman or any good artist, hindi ka susuko. Always keep your head down and fight. So, in creating your niche, I encourage you to create works. Create an inventory of your works. Hindi ka mag-create ng inventory for exhibition. Meron mga artists who come to me and say, "Sir, may exhibition ako." Bakit? Ano ka ba? Artist ka ba? Exhibitionist? Kasi artists make art not for exhibitions, but for themselves. What I do in my work is this. Gumagawa ako ng artworks in advance. Ako yung magdidikta, the sovereignty. Kung ano yung theme, topic, and subject. And then, saka ako maghahanap ng isang project or exhibition kung saan ko siya ilalabas. That's why, as early as now, I'm finishing works that are meant for 2023. Nakita mo yung layo? Kasi I believe that the artist should never have a deadline. Because only art that's made without a deadline, yun yung magandang work na lumalabas. Now, if ikaw yung type of artist na trip mo magkaroon ng deadline, okay lang yun, but it's supposed to be self-imposed. The true art comes from freedom. It's actually the best kind of freedom that you can ever have. It's the freedom of free expression. So anyone who tries to tell you what to do at a certain time na hindi ikaw hindi ka agree doon, that's a violation of your right to free expression. I hope you understand that it's that serious. Hindi hindi mo papalampasin lang na hindi kasi ganyan lang yan. Kaya hindi kasi kailangan ko eh. Dapat you should have agreement on that before anything else. Next slide, please. Next. Like any good businessman, it goes without saying that the cost of your studio should be less than your earnings. Learn to work with the simplest tools possible, with the least maintenance cost, and the least number of personnel and the least number of production time. Uh, si Nick Joaquin, when he was alive, during isang inuman session, told me this: learn to live small. The principle of smallness. Huwag kang, ano mo yun, problema sa mga artist. Solo show, sold out. Anong gagawin? Bili ng bagong ganyan, bili ng bagong ganito. Para naman. Before spending your money on luxury, spend your money first on your studio. Alam mo yun? Yes, marami sa atin galing sa hirap at galing sa mahirap na pamumuhay. You can give yourself a little luxury kapag meron ka ng excess. Pero hanggat wala kang excess, at makikita mo yon doon sa iyong kinompute na expenses for the year, hanggat wala ka pang lumalabas sa excess doon, you have no right to spend on luxury items. So, I have a principle. Ito the cost of your studio should always be less than your revenue. Revenue should always be great. This answers a very important question. Tanong sa akin na mga tao is, Riel, how much do you price on artwork? Ang sagot dyan ay ito. The cost of an artwork should be able to cover the cost of your production of the same artwork times 10. In other words, dapat pag binenta mo yung artwork mo, it will allow you to create 10 more artworks of the same or similar object or painting. Kasi in that way, hindi ka kailangan manikluhod sa isang collector o isang gallery na pautangin ka for anything kasi wais ka na eh. You've already covered your cost. Okay? Next slide. So, ito yung pinaka-importante. Because of the principle of sovereignty, ikaw ang bida ng yung sarili mo studio. Don't sell yourself short. Don't inflate your sense of importance and keep a simple life while keeping your brand in prominence through your work. Ito yung sinasabi nating yung artist brand, hindi ikaw yan. That's just your market brand. Ang artist ego should be less than the brand. Your brand is also your creation. That's also your artwork. In fact, yan yung napakalinaw sa practice ko. Because I'm a curator, I know that when I became an artist, hindi nawawala ang pagiging curator ko. Nandyan siya. In fact, I curated myself. I imagine myself being another person and I'm curating myself. Riel Hilario, the artist, is actually a curatorial project. I don't even identify with it. In fact, because of my multi-facetedness, I write, I curate, I create memes, I do conceptual pieces, I perform. I know that I am not limited to being Riel Hilario, the sculptor. That's my brand. Yes, that's the brand I'm most known for. But I am not my brand. Yan yung problema ng mga artists na, for example, ikaw din naman artist in Thailand. Sabi niya, Riel, I'm the only person who makes elephants in Thailand. Really? I mean, elephants are the subject matter of Thai art for 1,000 years. Meaning you were alive then, making those elephants? Of course not. No one has exclusivity over a work. No one. In fact, di ba, ang laging problema ng mga artist yan, ano makakal the original idea? Alam mo pare, sa postmodern world where we are in, we are now in the postmodern originality is no longer an issue. In fact, Sa postmodern world, makikita mo yan yung effect na yan sa songs. Di ba pansin nyo mga songs, maraming cover or maraming remake or mga movies na may remake? That's a symptom of the postmodern world. The postmodernism believes that there's no such thing as originality anymore. Ang meron tayong offer is our own version. So, for example, I did not reinvent the revolto making in the Philippines. So, I simply created an innovation of that. In fact, that is the challenge of contemporary artists today, to innovate. Don't stress yourself in thinking or trying to create a new or brand new whatever style or no. I'm telling you, as an art historian, wala nang na-explore sa painting na hindi pa na-explore. Ang hindi pa na-explore, uncharted territory sa buong mundo is digital art, the digital frontier. And it's cross disciplines with other art forms and disciplines. Ang tawag ko nga dyan is we are racing towards the creation of what is known as an imaginarium or a sensorium. Ang sensorium ay isang artwork na papasok ka, isang artist, Marico Mori has this, papasok ka doon sa kanyang installation and you will be inundated by an experience using sound, smell, sight, visions, and time. And your feedback is also necessary for that. Alam nyo ba na in the other parts of the world, yan na ang art, sensorium or imaginarium. Ang imaginarium naman is a theoretical space where you can create for yourself, ikaw yung viewer, ng possible futures. In the Philippines, isa lang yung gumagawa nitong kilala ko, si Judy Fresebayan sa kanyang Museum of Mental Objects. She is performing as a museum. Ibubulong mo sa kanya isang idea and she will keep that idea in her mind as a museum artifact. Di ba galing? Ayan. So, next slide. Next slide. Remember that your creative life is just a function of your whole life. Time is one resource that you cannot renew. So, in creating a niche, always remember that don't spend too much of your time in creating work. Live. Conserve your time to spend with your loved ones, and your creative time only for yourself and and for your livelihood. So time should be smaller than your return. Next slide, please. So now this is just a recap of my advocacy on the feathered serpents. So if you have any questions regarding how to improve your practice, how to create your niche market, you can always consult me when I'm free. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity for this talk. And good afternoon.
Thank you, Riel, for that very informative presentation. Earlier, we raised the question, if would you rather be critically successful or commercially successful? Actually, 86% said that they want to be critically successful, and 14% said that they want to be commercially successful. However, the comment section said, why not both?
Yes. Yeah, why not both?
And then we actually have a few questions here from the comment section. So the first question is from Robert Alejandro.
Hi,
He
hi,
asked,
Robert.
how important is marketing in an art career?
What?
How important is marketing in an art career? That's the question.
Oh, sa art career and art practice, it's not important. Meaning, that's not your job. It's the job of your gallery to create a market for you. Pero in this day and age, Robert, in this day and age kasi sometimes you have to do your own marketing. And in that case, in my case, I do my own marketing. Uh, in that case, it is important because the person who markets you knows who sino yung clients and your customers and creates the channels for it. Because of my extensive background as a curator, I know the other part of the scene. So that's why I'm able to offer then marketing services to artists if they want to, if they believe in what I do. Because I also was a gallerist before. Uh, and yes, basically to answer this question, very important if you want to reach a larger audience or market for you.
All right, remember that, artists. This one is also quite related to the first question. So someone asked if what are the odds for someone who's been lost somehow for many years, latecomer, so to speak, trying to enter the art scene?
Yan. Actually, yung art scene natin is suffering from a prejudice known as ageism. Ageism is yung pag matanda ka na, hindi ka pwede maging artist. Kaya kung bata ka pa, hindi ka pwede maging artist. Parang may requirement lang na age para maging artist. My answer to that is there should be no hindrance to a person who's creative to start all over again. Basta he or she is willing to look at the art scene again with fresh eyes. Hindi niya, for example, if he or she was active in the 90s, wag niyang isipin na 90s pa rin. That's like going to the last war. I mean, that's like going to a war with nuclear submarines using bow and arrows. You have to be updated if you want to engage yourself in the art scene. No, there's no stopping you. In fact, the Asian Cultural Council is a grant-giving body that offers a 6-month residency in New York. Is offered to all artists of any age. So kahit 60-year-old ka na, if you want to do research in the US for your art, you can apply. Now, how to apply? I can give you a link to that. PM me, and yeah.
Ayun, it's never too
yeah.
late to start, no? Some
That's
artists
not too late
actually,
too.
there are a lot of artists who started late but ended up successful in their career naman, or in their art
Yeah,
career.
I mean, even if you don't end up successful, why deprive yourself of the chance to be creative, right?
Exactly. If you want to be an artist.
An example of that is Juan Arellano. Juan Arellano is a national artist for architecture. But did you know that he was a pioneer in abstract art? The reason why no one knows this is because he practices abstract art privately. No one stopped him from making abstract paintings. But of course, because hindi niya nilabas to, he was not able to influence the direction of Philippine abstract art, unlike Ibanez. So yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
Ayun, that's very inspiring. I'm sure the Ilonggos know of Juan Arellano's work.
Of course, you should.
All right, so we actually have a few questions on the comment section. However, it's already 4 p.m. We can actually go to the link of this live stream and answer them as well. But for now, thank you so much, Riel, for your time and for joining us in this live stream and also helping us organize the Art Response Project, this partnership with Ilumoka. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. We hope that the information we shared is helpful to the artists who joined. We have posted links to some of the resources that you can use as reference, especially Riel's presentation earlier. We will also upload the video on our YouTube channel so that you can watch it again, along with the previous talks that we've had for the Art Response Project. Again, thank you to Riel Hilario and to Richard Bokshani for this partnership with Ilumoka. You can also follow Ilumoka on our social media page to be updated with everything Ilumoka, including upcoming exhibitions, talks, and educational programs. So right now, the museum is temporarily closed again due to the government mandate on COVID-19. But again, follow us online for updates. And that's all for this month's edition of Live Streams in partnership with the Art Response Project. See you again next time. Good afternoon again and stay safe.